Yo, what's going on, guys? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for a great bootleg review. This one is titled Crazy Diamond. It's by Pink Floyd. We're talking Empress Valley Supreme Disc, 3 silver press CDs, and the catalog numbers for these happen to be 1269, 1270, and 1271. Awesome packaging, which we'll dissect at the end. Audience recording. You heard me right, okay? Great audience recording by the legendary Mike Millard. One of you guys pointed me this way as a way to start getting into audience tapes. And I would say you were right on. Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, April 26th, 1975, Wish You Were Here tour. There have been a multitude of different versions out there. LA Fourth Night, Pink Millard, Definitive Millard. They're all the same show, this show right here. As a big Floyd fan, this is a pretty exciting pickup. You guys familiar with this channel know the deal. I'm going to set the stage for us with some background on the arena itself, the band, and the tour, and in this case with our recorder, Mike Millard, right? At the end, I'll rate the sound, the performance by the band, and then go over that packaging, give that a rating too, and an overall rating for the whole shebang. All right, first off, let's take a sip of something. It's Father's Day, so I know you guys aren't seeing this till Tuesday or Wednesday. I hope you've had a good Father's Day. For me, I got some whiskey and a little sweet and sour. So a little whiskey sour, kind of muggy out, a little overcast. What is it with this weather this year? Oh man, that's good. It's mid-June. I had more beach days in April than I had in May and June combined. Unacceptable. All right. LA Sports Arena. Let's go over the venue a little bit. Opened in 1959. One-time home to the Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings. Lots of college basketball there. USC, UCLA, both called it home at one point or another. Closed and demolished, sadly, 2016. I'm sure a lot of you missed that place. Of course, being in the 16 to 17,000 seat range, saw many concerts. Pink Floyd, the Wish You Were Here tour. It began April 8th in 75, so only about 3 weeks prior in Vancouver. And after 7 more shows in 6 U.S. cities, all on the West Coast, band set up shop here in Los Angeles for 5 shows, which would be the end of the West Coast tour. So from April 23rd to the 27th, this is where they were. So this is the 4th of the 5 shows right here. This show, April 26th, was the 12th of only 29 total shows on the entire tour. So after LA, headed to the East Coast of the US in June, and then did the Nebworth Festival July 5th. That was all she wrote for the Wish You Were Here tour. So this is part of why this show is very special in several ways, but only 29 total tour dates. All right, that's pretty wild. Very little Floyd soundboard from their most popular era, 73 to 81, exists. All right, some, but not much. For one thing, those 75 and 77 tours, and the Wall tour, I guess, short tours. So fewer potential for soundboard or even complete audience tapes to even exist in the first place. Now, as far as the Wish You Were Here tour, you'd have to piece together from 3 different sources to get almost an entire show from this tour, and those being from Wembley 1974. You got Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Sheep and Dogs from the box set, the Immersion box set, okay? Disc 2 had those 3 songs on it. Okay, I specifically bought this box just to get those 3 songs out of there. Dark Side of the Moon album portion. You can use the 2023 version, live at Wembley. Dark Side of the Moon Live, it's called. That would be the better sound quality version for the Dark Side material. Also, if you were quick on your feet, or if you want to spend $60 nowadays, but this was out there for under 20 about 12 years ago. This is live at the BBC, Japanese import version. Wembley 74, the entire Dark Side of the Moon, and also Echoes is on here. I think this release was from 2011. All right, so 14 years ago now. Now the Dark Side stuff sounds better on the newer, updated release the band put out themselves a couple years back. So for the better quality version of Dark Side, you'd go there, but you get Echoes on this one. All right. And even still, you would still be missing one more song that is on this crazy diamond release we're about to talk about. The band either didn't record their shows or somehow managed to keep them out of bootleggers' hands under lock and key. So some audience tapes from 75 and 77, yes, they exist, but who better than Mike, the Microphone Millard, to provide us with one, right? And by the way, since we're bringing up Mike a lot in this episode, and I'm holding a drink in my hand, cheers to Mike, and thank you for everything you did. Rest in peace. So let's talk about Mr. Millard a little bit. He recorded over 300 shows between 1973 and 1994. Luckily for us, right before this one, before capturing Zeppelin a month earlier, he upgraded his equipment from a mono recorder to a Nakamichi 550 stereo recorder with, I believe, some German microphones to boot that were ideal. So also, to help him get the best possible positioning for the show and conceal this large equipment, he pretended to be disabled, using the wheelchair, gutting out the seat to make it appear that he was sitting on a thick pad. That's actually where the recorder was kept. But not only that, before there was specific handicapped seating or places to put a wheelchair like there are now, generally you would just be put on the end of an aisle. So that helped him get better positioning as well. All right, so he had 2 years of taping experience at this point, got some great new recording gear, had a seat in Section A, which is part of the CD package, his actual ticket, which all equates to a great sounding and complete Wish You Were Here tour show, which is just awesome. Interestingly, but pretty par for the course for Pink Floyd, half or more of these songs that are played here are still unreleased. It's April 75. Wish You Were Here would not be released until September 12th of that year. There's the setup for you. Let's get into the show itself. Roger Waters, bass and vocals. David Gilmour, guitar and vocals. Richard Wright, keyboards and vocals. Nick Mason on drums, joined by Dick Parry, saxophone. The Blackberries, they're called. Vanetta Fields and Carlina Williams are your backing vocalists. Let's get on to disc one. Track one, quick microphone test by Mike the Mike, and then some band tuning that goes on for a minute or so. First song, Raving and Drooling, also known as Sheep, and followed by You Gotta Be Crazy, which would become Dogs once the Animals album was out. But for Wembley and for this show, 74 and 75, these were the working titles, all right? Now, I feel like I can really describe both of these songs to you at once. They're very like the Wembley versions. They might even be a little shorter, actually. I have to do the times on those. But roughly the same. If you have the Immersion Wish You Were Here box set, you know, it's 5 months later. They sound very similar to those. Okay, it's cool to hear these early takes on these forthcoming Animal songs. They're not drastically different. I hear some parts that were a little longer at Wembley are now shortened. A couple of parts that were shorter at Wembley are now longer, but it's all just sort of in the same ballpark. I really prefer the versions that made the final album. They wouldn't record these songs for another year and a half, you know, late 76 to be released in 77. So working on these songs for over 2 years, really. For my money, though, I think the album versions are simply just the better versions because these are just a little different and they're kind of draggy. The flow of the songs, that being all the different parts seem to be here, but in like little different places, you know? So by the time they recorded the album, I think they just had the right versions of these songs to lay down. So most of all, though, what bothers me with these versions, Wembley's too, they plod along. Nick mostly just plays this tom beat along with the don't don't the don't don't the don't don't the don't don't. That's mostly what he does. Occasionally he will do a little driving snare thing that would become how both of these songs are on the record. The driving beat, okay? That's what they're missing. They're missing that on Wembley, they're missing that here. The driving beat of the snare drum, pushing those songs forward. That's the biggest thing to me. So these are interesting versions. You know, I'm a huge alternate take guy and demo guy. I kind of can't get enough. You know, I mean, I bought an entire box set for $120 to get 3 songs, you know. So, but in this case, I don't prefer these versions. But yeah, of course, they're cool to hear and interesting to hear. And man, we'll talk about the sound right now, actually, because we head into Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Now, this is an album that wouldn't be out for 5 more months, but the Shine On You Crazy Diamond and Have a Cigar Here are pretty much done like the records would be. Great sound on those, but overall, let's talk about the sound. Since I'm an admitted soundboard guy, I am very pleasantly surprised with this one. As advertised, crystal clear. All right, I listened to it in my car, listened to it on my home stereo with 2 speakers, and then went and listened to it on surround sound. It has a very, even just in my car, enveloping quality to it, like it's wrapping around you, okay? I think the confined atmosphere of being in a car, Mike's Nakamichi with multiple mic inputs, and the arena-like feel of the recording, let's face it, that has a lot to do with it too, right? He's seated in a great place. It's an indoor arena, so the sound is going to reverberate and filter back into the recording device. And let's not also forget Pink Floyd's quadraphonic sound. So it's not just pinging off the arena. It's coming from speakers all around the arena. So, man, you know, I thought the car sounded great. Thought the home stereo sounded good. Thought the surround sound just was the final touch, man. It just sounds amazing. And in fact, here I took a picture of the settings of what you had to do to get the best sound, or what I had to do. It does need a little bit of bass boost. Overall, it's beautifully clear and crisp sound. You do feel like you are about 16th row or closer, actually. The audience recording, it doesn't really get much better for an audience recording, okay? It's a solid 9 overall. As an audience tape, it's a 10. Generally speaking, compared to the best possible sound, I'll still give it like a 9. So it is comparable to a soundboard, as a lot of you already know. So a few of the highlights, though, from Sheep and Dogs, before we move on too much. That ominous synth sound rears its head here and there, which isn't really on the album. I'm talking about this droning thing that sounds really mean. Also, this gorgeous swirly, chorusy thing on guitar Gilmour does in Dogs, or You Gotta Be Crazy. You'll know it when you hear it, all right? It's just, I don't know what pedals he's using, man. He's got the right mix there, and a couple of spots just sounds gorgeous, and better than something I wish he would have did on the record, to be honest with you. Really nice sort of synthy, swirly, chorusy wash he does now and then. So, all right, still on disc 1, like I talked about, we got Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Just so cool hearing the 12th ever live version of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, you know. Dave's guitar just sounds great. It just sounds so much like the record. I really almost wish it would sound a little bit different, but it's like spot on album. It sounds beautiful. Now, Have a Cigar. This would be my first sort of like highlight of the night. It's not even my favorite song from Floyd on that album, or generally speaking, it's one of my least favorite Floyd songs. Sounds phenomenal here. I think this is my favorite version of the tune. Sort of metallic sounding guitar. Great harmony vocals with Dave and Roger on this one. I prefer these over Roy Harper's vocals, to be honest with you. But this song sounds great. Love it. Now, we don't get Wish You Were Here. We don't get Welcome to the Machine. So we move right on to Shine On parts 6 to 9. Again, really cool. And Right sounds great here. Flashes of the earlier psychedelic spacey Floyd and some of his noodling on that keyboard. That's your last track on disc 1. Shine On 6 to 9. So man, what a great first disc, okay? But it's going to get better, believe it or not. You think that would be awesome enough. By the way, props to the LA crowd. They seem just as into, almost as into, all those unknown songs we just talked about as they are about what's coming up next, Dark Side of the Moon. They really are appreciative of Floyd and receptive to listening to new stuff. So that was kind of cool. So this will be the last tour where Floyd would play the entire Dark Side of the Moon like this in complete form. And honestly, I was looking forward to this disc the least. You know, it's just Dark Side's so overplayed and so forth. But you'd think the band might be sick of it too. They've been playing it since '72 in concert, the entire Dark Side. But guess again, I just love when I'm pleasantly surprised by releases like this. I go into them with certain expectations and they get upended in a good way. Not only a great Dark Side of the Moon set, probably my favorite of the 3 or 4 older ones that I have. Japan 72, the Wembley 74, and I guess we shouldn't even count that Pulseless from 1994, but I'll throw that out there since they did play the whole thing. Starts out with a lengthy heartbeat and build up, crowd anticipation into Breathe that lasts about 6 minutes. So it's pretty cool that Mike captured that right from the get-go. All right, that's pretty cool. For me, the highlights of Dark Side Live are always 2 songs that aren't necessarily my favorites on the album. The 2 instrumentals. On the Run, really good version. We'll talk about Any Color You Like in a minute too. They're also both great on Wembley, to be honest with you. These songs just seem to excel live. You know, the band's sort of jamming like the old days is how I kind of feel listening to it, for one thing. So, Into Time. It's really solid. Even old lyrics of Lying Supine in the Sun. I like that they kept that around. Like even after they changed it for the album, they do that in 72. They put something else on the album, but they're still singing the supine lyric live. I don't know if any of you caught that. That's really cool. One thing about this show overall, at least once you get to the Dark Side stuff, Dave's kind of content to just hold notes really long, as opposed to playing a lot of different notes or flurries of notes on these Dark Side songs, Money and Time. But they start to grow on you. By the third listen, I'm kind of getting into these long held notes, solos that he's doing. All right, so just be prepared for that. They are a little different. I don't think they're necessarily the best solos for the songs, but at least they are different. You know, I give them credit for doing something not like the album here. Into the Breathe reprise, and then Great Gig in the Sky is really cool. The Blackberries do a solid job. Double lead vocals with that female singing part, all right? I love how it musically transitions into a jazzy ending. Now, I don't know if I remembered that from Wembley or not, but it's really pretty cool here. A couple minutes of sort of jazz come down on the end of Great Gig in the Sky. And Wright's Ivory work here is reminiscent of some of the late 60s stuff that he did with Floyd too. So that's the thing about these recordings that kind of surprised me from this era. They still have some touches of 5-year prior live noodling, you know, this jazzy noodling that Wright does here at the end of Great Gig. So on into Money, ridiculously tight and rocking, very sort of record-like, but done with a nice amount of oomph and energy. Like I said, for doing this album live 4 years now, they sound really, really into it still. And again, like I said, Dave's sort of content on just the hold long notes versions of solos here. His singing is really good, but a bit loose too during this show. All right. Still good, hard rockin' version of Money. Us and Them, I really, what stands out with this for me, some very Tony Banks of Genesis-like double keyboards by Richard Wright, right? Playing some keys with one hand and this real moody synthesizer on the other for the intro to the song. It sort of ends up being just a pretty good standard version of the song, but the intro is kind of different too. All right, Any Color You Like. As mentioned, it's killer, all right? I thought On the Run was really good. This Any Color You Like is just a jam session, and at like 11 or 12 minutes, just, I think, the highlight of the Dark Side set. Believe it or not, Any Color You Like, the best song from Dark Side on here. Equally great, Brain Damage and Eclipse. Those 3 songs are the best songs on this show so far, along with that Have a Cigar. And these are not songs that I necessarily like. They're all 3 of the, probably my bottom third of my Floyd list of all-time favorite tunes. Not here. They're done so well. The Brain Damage and Eclipse, those end verses, just larger than life. Dave singing, Roger singing, both background vocalists doing their thing in the back. It just gets such a build-up. Brain Damage into Eclipse. The surprisingly fantastic Dark Side of the Moon set. I love and almost forget how Floyd-like the band still was live in this era. You know, like old Floyd, like I should say. So, some late 60s, early 70s Floydian moments to be found within that 73 album. All right, one thing to point out, Eclipse is in fact on disc 2 with the rest of the Dark Side stuff, not on disc 3. So a mistake there made by Empress Valley, but I just thought I'd point that out since you're looking at that a lot during this little review. So disc 3, the finale, the one and only Echoes. I'll stop short of saying it's one of the best I've ever heard, but it is very, very good. Of course, you get the sax solo in there instead of one of the guitar solos, just like in Wembley 74, although I think the sax solo is better in Wembley. Crowd loves it. Love it. As soon as they hear it start, they love it. Nice to hear that crowd reaction, by the way. Receptive to everything, as I mentioned earlier. The last tour to feature both Echoes and Dark Side of the Moon in entirety. Another great reason to own this show, right? And needless to say, every big Pink Floyd fan needs this one. By the way, it's a flat transfer of Mike's first generation tape. So imagine what could be done if you demix this thing. You know, rectifying maybe that little lack of bottom end for one thing, which is really probably the only thing to say about their sound. The packaging here is off the hook. A nice tribute to Mike by Empress Valley, all right? A way cool hype sticker that, unfortunately, I'll show you that separately. It was on the cellophane. So basically you have to save the cellophane just the way you would like shrink wrap. But as you guys know, you have to lift this stuff off, pull your disc out. It's not going to slide at the side. I guess theoretically I could put a slit in the side of this just like a record album, right? But the other cool thing though is that this sticker will peel right off of the cellophane, no problem. So I guess it's your choice what you want to do with it. Just cut it out like you would any other hype sticker and slide it inside the package, save it that way. I'm choosing to just save this whole thing, and I keep the discs themselves and that outer little wrapper in like a generic Ziploc bag, all right? Just to keep it all in one place, but not have to do anything drastic with it. So Google Translate, always good for a few laughs as much as anything. So I thought I would use it for this hype sticker, just see what it says. For one thing, it lists all the songs on Wish You Were Here, which aren't all here, as you know, as we already went over. For one thing, it says, how about a cigar? All right, that's what they call have a cigar. And you always get a couple of funny little translation things like that. So the translation for the title on the Obi strip, this darker, bolder lettering, crazy diamonds are unbreakable. Okay, that's what it translated to. I have a feeling it's diamonds are forever. Although we could see that the title is just actually crazy diamond. Okay, so maybe that's just a sort of, you know, little tagline there, try to get your attention. Diamonds are forever, but really kind of cool. Interesting choice in colors there with that Obi, right? Neon green really screams for your attention, and I guess rightfully so to us big Floyd fans. So the front cover, let me just take the Obi off of there so you guys get a good look at that. It's not a lenticular cover. And I know it picks up differently on video here than what I'm looking at, but it almost appears to be like it could be a lenticular cover like the, you know, Sabbath 13 or whatever. It's not. The picture doesn't change at all, which actually would have been cool for them to maybe consider doing, actually, because you do have a couple different versions of that front cover picture. Take the CD versus the album where the guy's like falling down, the guy who's on fire. Anyway, this is what they call a hologram with prism glare effect, okay? That potentially can come at you from anywhere. The Obi actually describes it as an aurora hologram, but as you can see, you get the rainbow effect. I don't know, or can you see it? I'm not seeing it in the reflection here, but I think it picks up pretty well when I photograph it, all right? And any kind of light. Well, it's kind of low light in this room, but will give you that rainbow effect, all right? Pretty cool. So you got a bifold inner on this one. No doubt they were photos from the show. And Mike also snapped some photos, him and his friend who went to these shows, so these could possibly be from him. I didn't look into that much of it, at least during the LA run, if anything. The background is the original Wish You Were Here jacket sleeve. That's kind of cool, that red sort of flag linen thing there, and trees. All right, open up your Wish You Were Here. It's on the jacket, but it's a flipped or mirror image of it, but a nice homage to the forthcoming album. The entire bifold, by the way. Also prism effect, even inside here. You get that hologram effect. I'm not seeing it. Oh, there you go, little bit of it, but it's kind of all over when you're looking at it in person. The back cover, slightly expanded original album back cover. Wish You Were Here Again, okay, on that one. Plenty of credit and honor thrown Mike Millard's way, all right? His ticket stub shown there. One of the actual tapes, the cassette covers or the J cards are there also. Actual ones Mike drew. Part of what he did was draw these, not very intricate, but like somewhat interesting covers to the tapes, you know. Mike's equipment is listed in here along with the venue, date, and tour info. I'm a bit surprised they don't have the band lineup on here. They have the venue and the date, I think, multiple times, so maybe the band lineup would have been cool to add. I'm really nitpicking at this point, right? It's a great looking back cover. The discs themselves are way cool. I've shown you some Empress Valley products on this channel before. They're known for their exclusive releases, their awesome remastering, also their high prices. Empress known for a lot of things, but a lot of it is super high quality stuff. But as far as I've seen, I think there's 8 or 10 titles I own from them at this point. I've only seen just plain text on the discs, not here. As another sort of nod to Mike Millard, the cassette covers that he drew with Mike's own little Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon prism drawing, recreated on each of the 3 CDs. All right, and each of the 3 CDs is a little different from each other. And you would need all 3 to recreate that J card drawing that Mike did. So that's a very nice touch. Really cool, kind of a cherry on top of this packaging. You know, putting any kind of artwork on discs for Empress is pretty rare. All right, it's the first one I own, like I said, out of 10 things. So some final ratings, although I give it a 10 for an audience tape, the sound quality, I'll go 9 overall, but it's really, I mean, anything above an 8 is really good. 9 means it's great, so it is still great. The third listen on surround sound. Wow, the control of the sound afforded to me there, I could make it a 10 by dialing up some bottom end, some subwoofer. So outstanding. Every instrument clearly heard evenly. A little bit of bass boost just does it justice. All right, let's call it an objective 9.5 overall, because not everyone has surround sound. So performance, I'd have to give it a 10. It's overall great considering so much new material, and I've heard Dave play better solos. I prefer the versions on Animals of those songs better than these here, but this is what was happening this night, you know, and part of Floyd is not doing the same thing all the time. So I kind of got to lay those little nitpicky criticisms aside and give this show a 10. You know, are there better echoes? Yeah, but it's just a rare 75 or 77 tour show. It sounds excellent. It's complete. The show, I'd have to just say, like I said, is a 10 overall. The packaging is insane. This goes to 11, all right? An 11 on the packaging, so there, all right? Final rating is probably in the 29 or 29.5 out of 30 range. So we're just going to have to round it up and give it a 10. It's a must-have. It's Pink Floyd Crazy Diamond on Empress Valley Supreme Disc. Find it if you can and grab it. Definitely need some kind of copy. You know, I know there's been a few out there, so a lot of you probably already have it in one form or another. I don't know if it gets much better than this, though. Empress does things right. And that'll do it for this one, guys. Hope you all doing well. Like I said, happy Father's Day to all you guys, or hope you've had one anyway. All right, guys, catch us all later. New music came through the door again. I'll get to some of that next, I believe. And also some recent listening. Doing a lot. Summer's coming. Maybe you need some new music to check out. I'll give you about a dozen or 14 things I just listened to. Talk about that. Guys, cheers. Catch us later.